Hi, and welcome to the 21st, 22nd, or 23rd episode of, what are we at now? The Rider Rumblings video podcast needs a better title. That one's on me. I'm Rob Vanstone. I'm here with Murray McCormick and our special guest this week. We're very pleased to have him with us, Warren Woods from CJME, from Global, from STV, from Sudbury, from
Parts Unknown,
various curling bonspiels.
Various curling lounges, probably more than bonspils.
From Sportsline. Have I missed anything, Woodsy?
Oh, from CKSO in Sudbury to Thunder Bay Television, CFCL in Timmins, Ontario. I've been around a little bit. I just want to know one thing, is how come I'm the last member of the CJME Green Zone to be on this show?
Because we saved the best for last.
That's a good answer.
Isn't that a bunch
I basically exhausted the list of candidates.
I think we got to acknowledge the fact we got two Sudburyans here. I grew up listening to Warren Woods on the radio in Sudbury back in the day on CKOS.
Yeah, that was my days as a music DJ, my prior life.
Really?
This is my second go around in radio.
What kind
and
of
news talk?
What kind of music were you DJing?
Top 40 mostly. Yeah, I was
late night.
It may be old, it may have mold, but it's solid gold.
It was late night too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did all nights. I did all nights at CKSO from for about 2 years, and then I moved down to evenings, and then I moved on. I actually ended up in a place doing mornings, a place called Kappa's Casing.
Kabuskisking.
You know how cold it is there? It is so cold in that place that GM opened a cold weather testing center there for their vehicles. That's how cold that place was. Yeah. And then from there, though, I hated the place. It was only there for about 4 months, but it got me kick-started into television because the next job I went to was just down the road in Timmins. They were looking for a TV sports guy, and so I applied, went down and did an audition and got the job, and the rest, as they say, is history.
And his hair is the same color. It's
pretty close. Yeah,
so
it's pretty
mine.
close.
Your scalp is the same color,
My
too.
scalp. I was hairy back then too. No, I had hair back in high school when I was listening to Warren
Murray
Woods.
grew up in the southern part of the city. I didn't know you then, but you lived in Llewellyn Park, and I know the area where Murray came from pretty well. I had a lot of friends down there, and
Really?
knew my
How we let
church.
you in that neighborhood?
Oh, it was amazing how it could happen. Sudbury High, and he went to Llewellyn Park, and they were really a non-factor in anything.
Murray did
we
his
were
part.
the worst football team in the city. I can take credit for that. 22 guys, and we got lost every game. Just about.
Had nice uniforms, though.
Nice purple and white.
Yeah, it looked good.
I was a knight.
And I grew up in beautiful suburban Regina. What was the Sudbury Saturday night like? Was it as described by Stomp?
Yeah,
and Tom?
it's pretty close.
Yeah.
It's Stomp. I'm sure that
the
the girls are out to bingo and the boys are getting
That was
stinko, and they think no more of Inco on a Sudbury Saturday night. And I'm sure a guy like Stomp and Tom would play a lot of bars that were near the Sudbury Arena, just off downtown a little bit, kind of a scuzzy area of town. So in many ways, what he was talking about, everybody sitting around and having a beer and listening to music, and he'd play all these bars, and it could get pretty rough at times. Certainly on a Saturday night, and he captured it perfectly in that song.
Speaking of stinko, is this a segue to the year?
I think we need a drinko if we're going to go back to that stinko.
Well, at least
on a Winnipeg Sunday afternoon.
What have I done to the microphone?
Yeah, we had to
screw the microphone.
We had to actually
hello?
sit there and watch it, unfortunately, and
So
Murray
did I.
had to sit through it.
What do you think?
Fans got to just turn it off.
What do you think of the
It's
game
stinko.
in Winnipeg on Saturday?
It's funny, and it's not saying I had a premonition that this was just going to happen. And then most of the
felt
time,
like
most of the
was
time
coming.
I'm wrong. And I was watching the game this morning before I came here. The first pass that Zach tried to throw was almost intercepted
by
And
two players.
there were two players. Marcus Thigpen played like the worst he's played ever. He played tentatively, and then I go back and sort of bounce
There's
around.
people who walk on coal are running more decisively than.
And then Zach throws that pick, and it's not as much his fault as Adam Bighill. I watched that play. Adam Bighill made a big play. I think Kieran Moore hasn't got to learn his ball secure, but what a big play by Adam Bighill to get that touchdown. And then it was over because two touchdowns. This offense is not going to score two touchdowns. You know it.
if you give up one,
Yeah,
if
it's
that
good.
offense gives up one, the chances of it making it back or getting it back are pretty limited.
So just a little bit. I'm going to involve Woody in this. Name the last Rough Rider to score a touchdown for the Riders this season.
Oh my goodness!
as opposed to the last Stampeder to score a touchdown for the Rough Riders.
Yeah. Well, this season,
Marcus Thigpen, maybe?
no, it was Nick Marshall, that 1 yard run. Name. I'll make it easier. If you name the last receiver to score a touchdown for the
I was
Riders.
going to say somebody like Kyron Moore, maybe?
Yeah, you're right about that. Like,
You know, here's the thing. I was one of those that picked the Bombers to win, too. And I thought, well, they're going to win just because, the Bombers were playing pretty good. It's tough to beat that team like that 3 times in a row. They were on the road. It was a short week. I didn't expect them to win, but I expected them to show up. I expected them to play. They didn't. They came out with nothing.
They didn't even attempt a rouge.
yeah.
Like, they didn't get inside the 40-yard line. There was no hope of any. They got inside the 50-yard line twice.
Yeah.
And turned it over both times.
We had
And one was
callers.
Brandon Bridge got to the 47 later, too, didn't
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then at that point, then why would you even bother trying to field goal?
he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you had the chance to score one at that point, why would you even bother? You might as well just try and score a touchdown.
I didn't cover the Riders back then, but Roy Shivers once so eloquently said, a CFL team gets its butt handed to them at least once a season. And it happens. And that's where you get your butt handed to them. But the fact that they ended it after the first half, like they were on the plane home. I don't think the fact that that's the part that's surprising. There wasn't even a fight left in them after the second half.
Oh, and and we had callers on our Green Zone postgame show.
Oh, did you ever?
Well, yeah. Well, people that were there and were noticing that they didn't come out of that tunnel, fired up, jumping up and down. They just kind of came out real lethargic. Noticed on the sidelines, all bundled up with their jackets. Here are the Bombers coming out flying. They're not wearing their jackets out there, despite how cold it was. They just looked like, this game meant more to them. And the Riders looked like that was the last place they wanted to be.
I approached my colonoscopy with more excitement than the Riders approached that game.
I will only point out that if you ever saw the movie Remember the Titans, they came up with this idea. They marched onto the field very slowly and deliberately and then came out. And I kind of watched
those were the kickoff returns, actually.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm
sorry.
The fact the Riders weren't jumping around and high-fiving each other, I don't put as much stock in as other people do because it's maybe something different. But they're right. You looked over at that field, and it was freezing there. Can I actually say that even from my comfort of the so-called press box area, it was darn cold. I got up in the morning. The rain was coming sideways. There were snow flurries. It wasn't a great day for football. But you would think
only one team was freezing in that?
Pretty well, yeah. One team was cold as heck.
Well, so much
colder than
Kapuskasing.
Casing?
Yeah.
Kapuskasing.
Yeah. You would think, though, that with so much at stake, I mean, there was a potential home playoff game up for grabs here. As it turned out, if they had won that game, they'd have it. You think they would come out with more emotion than that, but they just had nothing.
You know what was weird? They held Winnipeg to only one first down in the first quarter. Unfortunately, that was a 72-yard touchdown pass. Yep. Winnipeg had 71 passing yards in the first quarter, and they had a 72-yard play. The other one went for a loss of 1. If the offense does anything, at least it's interesting until the second quarter. But when you give them points, when you're pretty much incapable of creating points for yourself, when you compound the problems by donating points to the opposition, there's some games where they'd be better off taking a knee twice and punting. And I don't even not even sure that's a facetious comment given the state of this offense. Just don't lose serve. Just give them the ball and hope the defense is going to make a play. The last 3 games against West Division opponents, the Riders' offense has scored 0 touchdowns. They've got 181 minutes against 181 consecutive minutes against Western Division opponents without a touchdown. They've scored 3 touchdowns defensively and scored none offensively over their last 3 games against the West. So what concerns me now is likely going against the West for the remainder of the season is whatever offensive totals they have been fattened against the East.
Yes, they have.
They are awful against the West.
Yep.
They've got
against good defenses. They're terrible. And you look at and everybody was talking about, oh boy, the offense is coming around. They played Toronto and Montreal. Offense is coming around. You played Toronto and Montreal.
And they beat the Canton Bulldogs, too. The Canton Bulldogs alumni. On a last-second field goal.
What?
Well, that's how pathetic this offense is. They need to play somebody that's
non-existent.
Yeah.
That's not. It's but the same token, defense didn't exactly stand up either. Mind you, there was the game we found out what happens when the offense, the defense, and special teams doesn't carry them.
Well,
capable of carry them. They aren't carried. They aren't worth
That's the thing. I mean, you can't expect the defense to keep making, doing it for you, to score points. Football's not working that way. The offense scores points. The defense is supposed to stop the opposing offense, special teams, the intangible. But it's working in reverse. You're expecting your defense to score the points. Well, they can't. You can't do it week after week after week. And as we saw, if the defense can't bail out this offense, they're not going to win.
I'll give you more mind-numbing statistics. Against the West this season, the Riders have 8 offensive touchdowns against the West this year. They have 7 non-offensive touchdowns against the West. So it's almost an even bet as to what facet of the team is going to score for the Riders when they play a West opponent. Is it the offense or is it the defense / special teams? It's almost a saw-off.
Can I remind you guys of something, though? They're 10-6.
I know.
Can't you just kill every stat and every thought we have is absolutely 100% negative, and this team shouldn't be in the playoffs, shouldn't be even in the picture, because I think they were better. Maybe they had more offense than 15. I meant to look that up, but things looked a little better when Chris Jones got here and that kind of things. But they're 10-6. How are they doing? Are they mirrors? Is it smoke?
They've been doing it with the defense and the special teams.
They've been propping up an offense and all year. Now can they? And with the offense being as bad as it has been against the West lately, they've played 8 games against the West this year and have failed to score an offensive touchdown in half of them. And now they have to try and make some moves in the West. Yes. I think that's an ominous stat.
It is an ominous stat, yes.
And that's...
You don't trust in Zach to kind of all of a sudden come out here and start generating a whole bunch of scoring plays against the Calgary Stampeders?
I'm not sure it's as much Zach Collaros as the offensive line is starting to show some cracks. The receiving core probably isn't of industrial league caliber. And the play calling, they're not going to scheme themselves out of any predicaments. You look at the things that Paul LaPolice is doing with the Bombers offense, the things he's trying to do with Weston Dressler, the things he does with Nick Dembski. You don't see any of that with the Rough Riders. Well, they can't even get a command of the basics. Yeah. There's just not a lot of... They didn't have a lot of talent before Naaman Roosevelt and Jordan Williams-Lambert got hurt. So now they're asking Zach Collaros with an offensive line that's missing Dariush Bladek that missed Dan Clark last game, has Philip Blake acquired on a Wednesday, playing on a Saturday.
Arguably the best lineman on the worst offensive lineman in the league. Line in the league.
So the line isn't very good. The receiving core is second on the depth chart, probably the opening weekend of training camp. And the scheming isn't, the schematics aren't very good. So what can you reasonably expect of Zach Collaros at this stage?
You expect probably better ball security, I guess. You're right. There's plenty of blame to go around, and it's not just Zach Collaros. But let's face it, he hasn't been. I think the Riders were looking for that 2015 Zach Collaros before he got injured. The MOP potential quarterback. We haven't seen that. Is that partly because of what he's had around him? Perhaps. He didn't get a lot of protection early on. The offensive line improved as the season went on. But he still doesn't have the receivers. Remember, they had 3 1,000-yard receivers last year.
Yeah.
They not even close to that this year.
They even have 3 receivers totaling 1,000 yards this year, which is
the one that had potential to reach that, if he had played on offense, was Deron Carter, and they traded him away.
First Deron Carter mention.
Yes.
Well,
I brought it up the other day, I said, did they make a mistake? I guess in terms of his attitude, no. He from all accounts, the locker room is a better place without him there. But the offense there's no deep threat. There's nobody the Riders have that scares anybody.
Well, they scare the Rider fans.
Yeah.
If you look at the last 2 games, Kenny Shaw has a pass go off his helmet. Deron Carter catches that. You look at the last game against Winnipeg, Brandon Bridge rolls to his right, lets loose with a long pass, gets himself out of trouble, lets loose with a long pass. It's right in the hands. Kenny Shaw doesn't make that catch again. It was almost the exact same play that Deron Carter scored on in BC last year. Almost the exact same, rolling to his right, near the sidelines, lets loose with a bomb, right in the hands. Deron Carter caught that exact same pass last year.
That was in the second half, eh?
It was right at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But still, Deron Carter is going to make those catches. Say what you want about everything else that contributes to the sideshow. By the way, marijuana is becoming legal this week.
What?
He's going to make those plays. And they don't have somebody to make those plays. And is that going to bite them in the end? Or are we just overreacting to a terrible game?
Both. I think it's pretty well both. I think it's a little bit of overreaction, but it was such a terrible first half that I was looking out in the crowd wondering how many people drove up from Winnipeg or already from Regina for this game are driving home right now, if they were sober enough, fortunately. But the place was nearly empty by the middle of the second half. People were leaving because it was a miserable day, but imagine spending money to go watch that.
I think they'll come out better against Calgary. I think they'll show more emotion. I think they'll come out with a much better effort. My concern is the injuries that are starting to pile up. If all things being equal, if they had basically the same squad, I think they could come back and conceivably beat a Stampeders team, which, quite frankly, isn't playing that well either.
Yeah.
I worry though about it's not so much the what's going on upstairs. I just worry about the injuries and whether they're going to be able to handle. I think a lot of it depends on if Naaman Roosevelt, Jordan Williams-Lambert come back. I think the loss of Darius Bladich is huge.
And Michael Brooks.
We don't know either about Iguavan. He took a rap the other day. He wasn't too good. He was
Zach
woozy.
Evans missed time.
Zach
Matt
Evans missed
Elam
time.
got hurt.
Matt Elam, yeah.
I mean, if all these guys can't play next
too.
week or the week after, then
See,
I think
I'm
there's
worried
some
about
trouble.
the Stampeders. I'm more concerned about these BC Lions coming in here at the end of the season for them.
Mm-hmm.
The BC Lions are playing pretty well, arguably, and they have Travis Lulay back. So let's say they go into Calgary, they lose where they typically lose. They've got to beat a really good Lions team to avoid going, well, if you can figure out the playoffs. It's basically Riders win and BC lost and their loss or ties. The Riders world, but the other world is a mess right now, which is wonderful for TV. But I think, if they lose to Calgary, they got to try to beat a really good BC team at home, and that's not going to be as easy as might have been way back in the beginning of the season.
Be a good spectacle, though. Riders in their regular season finale can get a home playoff game by winning. It's almost like a second home playoff game if they win it.
Then we just already have a home playoff game like that. Edmonton was like another home playoff game, and they won that without any touchdowns. I just can't believe they can win 10-6 without scoring. This offense is this bad.
I've never seen anything like it. And maybe
it's just,
I think it colors the perception of the team. The 10-6 is laudable. They finished first in 1976 by going 10-6. But then they had Ron Lancaster. They had the league's most outstanding player on offense. Now they've got...
Well, what gets me is that head coach Chris Jones expects his defense to get those points. He's got a goal for them this year. You got to go get 10. They've got 7 so far. What does that tell you when you're depending on your defense to score points? He knows they're not going to win, but he doesn't have the offense. He's got to depend on his defense, and he's got to depend on his special teams.
So you guys are experts.
We are?
What do you do to the offense to get it going then in the last 2 games? You have let's say they have 3 games where they have to win at least 2. Then one's a playoff game to get to the Grey Cup, wherever they are. What do you do? What do you guys do? You be the coaches. Throw yourselves out there.
I'd go max protect, go with 6 or 7 on the offensive line, have double tight ends, and use it to either ram the ball down the opponent's throat, because Trey Mason is having a pretty good year. Failing that, you've got some protection for Zach Caleros, and maybe he's got some time to hit some receivers downfield. And I would try and create some matchups with Marcus Thigpen. Do they ever do that? This is a player who is the fastest, most dangerous player on the team. Why not flank him out of the backfield, put him on see if you can get him matched up on a linebacker or a safety or a defensive back, and just let him go. I can't believe the misuse of a weapon like Marcus Thigpen. I look back, I mentioned Ronnie a few minutes ago, and Ronnie had a running back like Bobby Thompson or Silas McKinney, Peter Watson, even Molly McGee. Take him out of the backfield, put him on a defensive back, put him on a linebacker, and let him go. There were years as a running back when Bobby Thompson was the Riders' most dangerous receiver. So what's with the misuse of Marcus Thigpen on offense? That's a lot of bullets that they're leaving in the holster. And that to me is the one card that they can play on offense that they barely attempted to so far.
Yeah, should they put Willie Jefferson on offense too? He's got more TDs than the receivers on that team. That's got better hands.
And he used to be a receiver, right?
He's got better hands, and they haven't tried that before. I'm being facetious there, but still, Willie Jefferson's been an offensive force on defense.
Toby Antigua could have probably helped them on offense too. Like it's reached that point. Yeah. I mean, the Thigpen thing really puzzles me. Unless they're just saving it so that they can ambush somebody with it in the playoffs.
Well, that's what you're not going to show you're not going to show everything, but it's getting down to crunch time here. You've got to get going. on offense. You've got to show something. I don't think that they can win in the playoffs if you don't start scoring some points offensively. You can't.
Unless they just refuse to give up points offensively, which I think is
But
part of the
they show that against
factor.
a really good team. You can't expect that. Like, I don't think did we ever think the Bombers were an offensive juggernaut by any stretch?
Oh, absolutely. I have no problems with talking to the Bombers, but look, the Bombers are leading the league in points scored.
Yeah, I know. So a good offense can still beat a pretty good defense at times. The guys like Nichols and that catch by Weston Dressler was just amazing. What a play call with 2nd and inches. The whole world is probably all looking for their popcorn and beer. And Stevler comes up and throws that great pass, and Dressler makes a great catch. What a great use of a short yardage quarterback, which was the Riders did that once with Nick Marshall. I think I called back, didn't it?
They did that once too on 2nd and short and going deep. And I think it was to Kyron Moore downfield. Was it not?
They did one to Jordan Williams Lambert against Winnipeg on Labor Day.
Yeah, that's what it was. So they have been known to pull something out like that every now and then.
They did that with Moore too for a 40. I think it was a 40-yard catch.
Yeah.
So they've tried a few things, but not as effectively.
So
sometimes.
How's this question? How long do you stay with Zach Claris?
Oh, he's your guy.
Is he your guy?
No, he's got to be. Yeah, first of all, he's the one you're paying.
Yeah.
And secondly, Brandon Bridge came off the bench and showed no better.
Exactly.
I don't know what's happened to him. I don't know what the difference was between last year and this year. I never did think that he was a starting quarterback, and I know that they don't think he is either. But I always thought, especially in relief of Kevin Glenn, he showed that he was a nice.
They let him do some
dimension,
things.
Change of pace.
Nice change of pace. Yeah, and he hasn't been able to do that this year when he has come in. When he was starting, he was pretty much like I expected.
But how about even like when Zach came in the second half to start the second half? How uninspiring was that little 2-and-out? Just, okay, he's done. They wanted to see if he could get something going. It didn't seem to have any urgency. Seemed to have that, that push. You got, okay, we're down 31-0. We're down. We only score one touchdown at a time. Let's just get things going, and then goes 2-0.
But again, people are painting Zach Claros with that. Okay, the first down on that drive was a bad pass. Second down.
Drive is a strong word.
Possession, truncated possession. In comes Adam Bighill around the flank as he was. Trey Mason might as well have just held out the cape and said "Ole." I mean, he just completely whiffed on Adam Bighill. So again, you're putting that on Zach Claros. Look at the first interception. Kyran Moore makes the break on the post and then kind of slows down and then speeds up again. Taylor Loeffler comes in, pick. Take a look at the second interception that was thrown by Zach Claros. He's looking to his left. Caleb Hawley is not exactly running the pattern with any urgency. And Zach Claros is looking at him. When he finally throws the ball, Caleb Hawley stops. In comes Taylor Loeffler, interception.
Yeah.
I mean, the receivers are not helping them. The pass patterns are tentative. It's just there's no real timing. There's no real communication.
That's where the swing passes to say Thigpen out of the backfield, and that's what I was going to say. Just some screens.
Yeah.
Just a little
hitch
something.
Screens, those short screens.
Not the hitch screen.
Whatever happened to the hitch screen?
Not the hitch screen. Just a little the middle screen, the stuff out of the backfield. Something to kind of take a little pressure off that offensive line.
Which is what they did well against Montreal. They were using Kyran Moore as the hot receiver. Yeah. And every time Enoch Mwamba was blitzing, they'd flip it out to Kyran Moore. Yeah. But then they play Winnipeg. Adam Bighill is doing a lot of the same type of things that Enoch Mwamba was doing. They have no answer for it. And Kyran Moore had one of the worst games you can have.
I know.
Drop pass, fumble, bad pass pattern leading to an interception.
It wasn't very...
What's your Kyran Moore bingo card for miscues?
Did he have a punt return? I don't think he'd had one because they ended up playing. I think Thigpen got hurt because I think they went with Purefoy at the end too. So it could be another injury they're cooking there.
Mm-hmm. But they're 10-6, so let's cue the applause track.
Well,
we'll see. They're not showing much right now. I mean, the scheme is just so vanilla and it is so predictable, and defenses know what's coming. In my view, are they saving something? Perhaps. Maybe they are. I go back to '97. When Reggie Slack was in that quarterback controversy, and then they throw him in there in the playoffs and they pull out the option, and caught Edmonton totally off guard.
And Calgary.
And Calgary for that matter. So, but you can't run it. You could run an option with with Reggie Slack. You can't do that with Zach Galero.
I haven't seen anything that shows any indication they're going to be dragging something out of their bag of tricks down the stretch here. I think is what we see is what we got. Because it'd be interesting to go back and look at earlier podcasts. I think we were talking about the same things. Vanilla, these same words all describe the offense. No passing touches, hasn't changed. But they're still 10-6, which people remind me when we start getting on the Riders' offense. They're 10-6.
Yep.
The thing is, when you talk about the offense being vanilla is actually tasty. Like this is acid and all sorts of vile
It'd be
things.
like you're cooking. What you're cooking? Be vile.
The question that we've asked is, are the Riders lately after that game now is if the Riders are overrated? I mean, at 10-6, are they an overrated team? I would say if they're healthy, they're not. But right now it looks like they are because I don't, especially with all these injuries. And like I said, if their receivers, Roosevelt, Lambert can't come back, then maybe they are.
Well, they signed Dakota Shepley today, added him to the practice roster. People remember him as the fifth overall pick. Help me, Rob.
Yeah.
Remember which pick was he?
Was he?
First round?
It's
first round pick.
But for first round pick.
That's a depth. That's got to be a depth situation, though, if he's got to come in do something right away.
Well, he might be better. He what does that tell you about Josiah St. John?
He didn't play that badly
overall.
He didn't play that badly.
No, I know. But the thing is that Philip Blake was starting ahead of him, and Philip Blake was here a day.
I'm not as upset about that. I think Philip Blake is an experienced offensive lineman who knows what he's doing.
Former Denver Bronco.
Poor guy. Former Montreal, which would be worse back then. But he's an experienced offensive lineman, and as I said earlier, arguably the best offensive lineman on the worst offensive lineman in the league. They gave it their best player. He knows what he's doing. He's got Labatt on his side to help him out. I don't think is that an indication of what they think of Josiah? Yes, but I also think it's a chance he started an experienced guy at that. And then Josiah came in, and as I said, I think he played pretty well in the second half, if we can say that of anybody.
Not that it mattered.
No, by then, but
that's singing in the shower time.
But as you said, I think Bladdock is going to be a big loss. A lot of people were down on him. He's such a nice young man, just a happy, so pleased to be here to have this opportunity. And I was watching him on the field, and you watch the way the guys gathered around him, and we're trying to get him.
Not
up.
just the Riders. You can tell the Bombers were waiting for the.
He's going to be, and it's serious. I don't think there's. There's no doubt.
When your coach is saying you're out a long time, that's the season.
At the same token,
Brooks.
Kyle Brooks, when that first game against the Blue Bombers when Harris ran wild, they didn't have Brooks, and then he was in the second game and he made a big difference in the middle there. I think.
And to go down in the final minute of a meaningless game.
So when the meaningless
juncture of the game. Pardon me.
So. How important these next two games got? I guess I should let you ask the questions, but how important these next two games, Woody? What do they do for the Riders?
The second one's
Where do we go from here?
Where do you go from here? You just got to try and find some kind of way to win one of these games. And get a little bit of momentum going into the playoffs. I mean, if you're going to get blown out again by Calgary and then blown out again by BC, that's not going to bode well at all. So they've got to at least show some life. And they've got to at least come out to play and be competitive in these next two games, and you got to win one of them, I think, but to get that home playoff game, right? Yep. But you've got to at the very least just show that you can play and be competitive.
What happens if they drop down, they go to the East for the crossover?
Not all bad.
Not all bad.
Way better than finishing third in the West.
I don't know. Is it? Hamilton's playing really good football right now, and Ottawa's beaten them twice.
Yeah.
I'll take my chances against the East any day.
I think you just want the road trip to the East.
Wouldn't complain, but people say that teams have never gotten to the Grey Cup. Our team has never gotten to the Grey Cup through the crossover, but the Riders were one play away from doing that last year.
Yeah.
So can happen. We probably exceeded our time here. Is anybody left with us? Murray. Why am I Warren? Yeah. Any final thoughts before we?
Well, I just feel honored that I was finally able to crack a spot on this wonderful podcast here.
We forgot to ask Gormley.
Yeah, well, he's available.
And after going through this, I can't believe you waited this long. You were awesome, Woods. As a Sudburyan, I'm proud to be with you.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the Sudbury Mafia just sticking together here. Listen, I think there is cause for concern. Will they come out and be this bit bad for the rest of the way? I don't think they will. In that way, it was probably a one-off. But I am concerned about the injuries, and if they, can't recover from those, then it's going to be a long haul.
Murr?
I agree with Woody if they say all that stuff, and I don't feel very optimistic I'm going into Calgary to winning. I don't think Calgary's going to lose 2 games in a row, and I think the Riders are going to be in tough, and it's going to come down to that a cold. Is it a night game on the last night of the year?
5 o'clock start. The last
BC
game.
Yeah, sorry.
Isn't that a 5 o'clocker?
Something like that. So another cold, bitter night to have to beat a good BC Lions team. So maybe I'm looking beyond the Stampeders, but
They'll beat BC. They'll get second.
yeah,
That's not a really especially tall order. If they're worth even monitoring in the playoffs, they'll beat BC at home to get a home playoff.
Well, my
game.
pick was 11-7. So
I think I had 13-5. So what the heck do I know? Do you want me to read the note?
I want Woodsy to read it because he's the skilled broadcaster.
Yes.
Warren Woods with our little note here.
Yes.
You got to cup your ear and do the Gary Owens routine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, could you please rate us on iTunes and leave a review? It helps us grow the podcast.
Yay!
Oh, speaking of podcast or podcast?
Pod, P-O-D.
Sorry.
Rate us on iTunes, leave a review. It helps us grow this podcast, which has been a lot of fun, boys.
For Gary Owens, Murray McCormick, I'm Rob Vanstone. Thanks for being with us today. Take care.